And sige get bus. And luto ko yun. And saya a Zoom. Luto ko. Hi, sir. Sir Sev! Woo!
Oh, hello. Ano yung baseball mo? Yan ba yung Ken Burton? Yan.
Yeah. Ken Burns. Ken Burns.
Ken Burns. Tama.
Yeah.
Ken Burns effect nga pala yun.
Have you seen it, Sir Sev?
Portion. Civil War. Nabuo ko na yung Civil War.
Yeah. Even yung Vietnam War niya, sir, maganda.
Ayun.
Yeah. Sir Sev, do you have any pictures there that you'd like to share? Any pictures kayo?
How many?
Kayo, five of your favorite pictures,
Okay.
you doing your job.
Sige, I'll exit video muna ha.
Email nyo sa akin, sir, then I will use it, we'll share it.
Kasi ikaw host eh. Hang on ha.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I should have asked you that earlier. My
Okay,
apologies.
I'll go back ha. I'll return.
Sige lang, sir. Hoy! Ang ingay mo, punyeta ka. Ayan, pusa na yan. Eh! Speakable cat. What a noisy cat. Alex, patahimik yung may cat na yan. Pa yan. Mogs, you're so noisy. That's okay na. Noisy cat. Go in front first. Maririnig ka naman, noisy cat. That cat, I swear, is always hungry. Hi, sir. We're back.
Ayan, na-email ko na sa'yo.
All right. I'll open it and then we can start.
Sige, anytime.
Actually, you know what? We can start. Let me just download the photos and then nice. Nice. Sir, when we start po, I'll ask po how you're doing in this time of pandemic. And then I'll ask you questions, sir, about did your being a cheerleader also contribute to your being a broadcaster, because you seem very calm in front of crowds and parang you don't seem to be rattled at all, even if I recall a time when you were not on TV for a while, but when you came back parang wala nagbago, tuloy-tuloy lang kayo. So I wonder if that's contributed, and
Medyo umuulan ha.
yes, yes sir, umuulan nga po. Ito lang, sir. Buksan ko lang. Usually live, sir, minsan it does well, minsan hindi. Pero dun sa post, when you put it up on Facebook or YouTube, dun dumadami yung mga views. We average around at least 500 views for each, at least, for each media person. Ayan. All right. We can start. Sir, we're putting this on YouTube, sir. It's live on YouTube. Alam na mga kaibigan natin sa media, naghihintay na po sila. So, give me a second, then we're gonna go live. How are you, sir?
Bored like crazy.
Aren't we all, sir?
Oh, grabe, no? Can you imagine? Are we on na? Wala pa.
In a second, sir. Ano lang po siya.
Can you imagine in the UAAP if they disallow the 60-year-old guys from watching those games?
Oo nga, sir.
Out, out mga alumni.
Hold on, sir. Bakit ayaw mag-live? Ayaw mag-live sa we'll just go on Facebook na lang, sir.
Take your time.
We can share it naman and download it later on.
1 hour tayo.
1 hour, sir.
Okay,
All
sige.
good, sir. We're starting. Hold on. Ayan na. Preparing the live streaming preview. I just finished a Zoom reunion with my classmates.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Grade 6 ka mo?
Yes, sir. Grade 6.
Buhay pa yung teacher niyo, hindi na?
That was a very good class for all of us. It was highly memorable for all of us.
Section niya?
Aguinaldo under Rodrigo Rolda. Rod. All right, we're going live, sir. Here we go. The feed is starting. Just waiting. Okay, we're live on Facebook. Magandang gabi, Pilipinas. Magandang gabi sa lahat ng nanonood dito sa web interviews natin with my colleagues in media. Tonight, we have a very special guest, someone who completes all the different aspects of media that we've been talking about: photography, sports writing, column writing, and even being an editor. Tonight, our guest is one of the most respected broadcasters, TV analysts around. He was my dean when I taught for a while at the Ateneo de Manila at the communications department. This man received all his master's degrees at the University of the Philippines. He is a man whose voice and face has covered so many of our most famous sporting events. Without further ado, the man, Sev Sarmenta. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Rick. Good to see you. And hello, everybody, whoever's watching. We hope we can lighten up your Sunday evening.
Right. Sir Sev, well, kumusta kayo itong lockdown, no? How has it been for you? What has it changed you've had obviously a lot of time to think, and what have you reflected during this time?
The good part is reading and writing a lot. One textbook for communication I managed to finally finish. Hope I can get to print it when we are all free from our cabins. A lot of reading, not too much sports really. It's hard to watch replays, especially games that you already know the results. Some highlights. I saw The Last Dance, of course. Then hopefully, and that's mostly it. And a lot of Batcave cleaning more than anything else. Yan ang nangyari. Alam mo naman tayo ang kolektor ng isang katerbang libro, video, at kung ano pa.
Sir, nagbabati yung kasamahan natin dito sa media, si Mike Murillo from Business World. Good evening daw, sir.
Hi, Mike.
Okay, Sir Sev, no, I understand that back in your school days at the Ateneo de Manila, you were a cheerleader. Tama ho ba?
Yeah, in my final year in high school, in fourth year, nasama ako sa Blue Bubble Battalion. And then 4 years of college, during the time of dating PBA Commissioner Chito Narbasa and Steve Watson,
Wow.
and Joy Carpio. These guys were my schoolmates, and we won 2 championships. We also had the closed door game where everybody was banned except the players. And Ateneo, of course, lost that game to Zambeda.
Sir, were the cheerleaders allowed inside even if it was a closed-door match?
No, they were not. It was a really bad second game. That was the third game. Interesting story, Jen. Kami ni Father Jet Villarin and a good friend si Nani Lim, we were trapped inside a little Volkswagen outside the Araneta Coliseum. We were surrounded by Sanbeda students. Ang advantage lang nung sitwasyon, I was able to talk our way out of it because I found some fellow cheerleaders there and I said, pare, may kasama kami babae. Kung gusto nyo, mamaya gawin nyo na yung gusto natin gawin. Pero may babae rito, wag natin gawin dito. Then, being gentlemen, being good guys also, and I knew the cheerleaders there also from Zambeda, we managed to crawl away. Pero yung takot namin, alam mo na kung nasaan na everything else was in our necks. And to this day, Father Jet always tells this story. It's a scary thing. But Father Joe Cruz at that time pulled the Ateneo out of the NCAA. It was just left to one game. Whatever happened in that game, Ateneo was pulling out of the NCAA.
Is it true that it was demoralizing for the school, the students and the players?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I think, to be fair to the first batch of guys who went into the first year of Ateneo in the UAP, the morale was really, really low because we were such a powerhouse in the NCAA. We were gunning for the third championship after two previous championships. The third is always the hardest to win, actually. Well, Letran knows that, Zambeda, even Lasal at that time. The alumni, of course, did not like it because it was part of their youth, part of their growing up years, and they felt the image at that time of the UAAP was not as glamorous as the NCAA. For some strange reason, the UAAP was considered inferior in terms of the game it played, but that's a matter of perspective, actually.
That's right. Sir, upon graduation, did you go straight into, because I understand that you were with Vintage, you followed the great Joe Cantada. Did you go straight from college to Vintage? What happened, sir?
No, right after college, I was hooked on advertising. I was hooked on advertising and I worked in advertising for a while. But previous to that, I had internships with DWBL, with Mike Enriquez. Now, I was not very good. I was very young. As a freshman student, but I learned so much. And later on, I became a voice talent in advertising. And later on, the whole story there is that I auditioned for Vintage because a director that I knew, si Flor Malong, would always turn off the audio in a basketball game and when we were editing some productions for a variety of clients. And he would always ask me, sige na, gayahin mo na si Joe Cantada. I would mess around with the audio and we were laughing. And then suddenly that same director ended up working at Vintage. And he said, why don't you audition? So, that's where it happened. To complete the story, I auditioned in two ways. First, as myself, and I think I passed. Then second, I auditioned. They wanted me to do the Joe Cantada, which I did for about 3 or 5 minutes with Romy Quintanar, the late Romy Quintanar. And to this day, I'm wondering if I made it to Vintage because of Joe Cantada or myself. But it was so hilarious. They all ended up laughing like crazy.
Sir, if you don't mind my asking, you're being a cheerleader, because having watched you through the years, I noticed that your confidence, and when on TV, you're very unflappable, and I mean that as a compliment. Did your being a cheerleader out there in front of thousands of students and players and so on and so forth, did that contribute? Did that help you in any way when you faced the camera?
Yes, and probably yes and yes. It's ang hirap maging cheerleader, para kang gago, para kang loko-loko sa harap ng mga kaklase mo, no? Ateneo was, in high school, it's funny because you're all boys, but the girls seem to find you interesting. Then in college, of course, naging co-ed ng Ateneo in those early years of the 70s. To spill it over to my broadcasting career, I think it was an understanding of the game. And there are certain times of the game now when Ateneo is behind, there's a certain cheer that you have to give, and there's a certain rally cheer that we do. There are many things that you learn as a cheerleader. Is the understanding. You have to understand cheerleading is not just shouting and dancing. You have to understand the basketball game so that you know what cheer to. You just don't shout Blue Eagle spelling and you're already tambak na kayo ng 40. In the olden days, pwede yun. But people watch basketball in a different way nowadays. Medyo hindi smart at kundi hindi nila pipilitin kung tambak na ng 20, which doesn't happen to Ateneo teams anymore.
Right. Sir, I want to go back on the cheerleading. The myth about your Blue Bubble Battalion cheering in Barong Tagalogs, true or fact or fiction?
True. There were some games. I worked with some very, very interesting college funny men. This is just college. Kasi nung high school, our head cheerleader noon, si Rick Olivares, wanted us to be dapper. Hindi niya gusto yung ordinary athletic cheerleader jackets. He made us wear suits, actually. In college, there were certain games, lalo na pag Ateneo Lasal, you'd like to show off eh. Ang advantage ko noon, com-major ako, so alam ko pag commercial pa yung, wala pa yung rule nung araw, who is ahead, mauna yung isa, yung team behind, wala pa yun. Ang ginagawa ko lagi sa group ko noon, sasabihin ko, pare, paunahin mo na yung San Beda o Lasal. Bakit na? Hindi, mauna tayo. Lamang naman. Hindi. Naka-commercial pa tayo, wala pa tayo sa TV. So, nakabarong kami, papalakpakan kami, and we were all men at that time. We were all boys at that time. Wala pa yung mga cheer dancers at that time. This was all guys, and we would choreograph, we'd rehearse for 1 week for just a pre-game and halftime performance. But Ateneo Lasal was showtime talaga.
Kumusta yung response ng mga kalaban, sir?
Oh, the fun part of, lalo na yung last 2 or 3 years, I always participated in the opening of the NCAA, where all the schools would dance together with schools like Trinity back then, San Beda, Letran, and we would rehearse in the different schools. We would rehearse in Jose Rizal University, sometimes sa atin sa Ateneo. We would get to know, that's why nakaiwas kami ng away nun ni Father Jet kasi kilala ko yung mga cheerleader ng San Beda eh. So, to this day, we get to still see each other occasionally. The guy from the bulletin and one of the guys sa SBP is a former Letran cheerleader, and he calls the Blue Eagle Gym ang pinakamalaking sabungan sa Katipunan. And don't cross swords too much with the Letran guys because they're feisty. Merong competition din ng araw. Nakakatakot binabato ka ng golf ball at saka holin at saka pera. Tumatalbog yung golf ball, yung holin. Pero yung pera, kinukolekte, siyempre, estudyante ko, wala kang pera, di ba? Pagkatapos, the king, pagbagsak na ganun, kukolektahin namin lahat yung pera. May pan-soft drinks na kami.
That's right.
Before kami bumalik sa bleacher, may umiinom kami ng soft drinks to sa tabi. So, ready na kami para sa second half. So it was a fun time but also scary. Lalo na may isang game, napaaway kami sa Mapua naman. Hindi ko alam bakit. Going home from Rizal Memorial, may tumira sa amin sa likod. Hinabol din namin. Mahirap na eh.
All right. Moving forward now. Would you say the time that you joined Vintage, that was the golden age for PBA broadcasting? Because I could be wrong, but in my opinion, I thought that what Mr. Velez brought to broadcasting for the Pro League was just something else, something we've never seen before. And Romy Quintanar, the man on the ball, it was always fun watching Romy K, and then you guys watching you guys. How would you feel about that?
Mr. Velez, having played for both LaSalle and Ateneo, was a promoter at heart. He understood the game. He was our coach. When the panel was formed, he had an idea. He wanted it to be a little like the NBA, wherein it wasn't so much the play-by-play, not just who shot, but he wanted some analysis. He wanted the coaching to come in. That's where sila Steve Catan, Freddie Webb, Andy Howe, sila Kinito, and Waki came along. So much fun in the early years because I was the youngest. There was a time I was the youngest. Now, sa TV5, I'm one of the oldest guys there. And it was so gratifying to learn from Pingoy, Pengson, Joe Cantada, and by the way, no, isang storya, no, si Joe Cantada. Finally, when I got to meet him, we had shifted from Araneta to Ultra. Di packet si Joe, and sabi sa akin ng producer, sige, gayahin mo na. And now there goes Joe Cantada, so ascending the stairs, moving forward, and without any, and the usual Joe Cantada parlance, you know, and akala ko magagalit yung tao. Sabi niya, I know who you are. That you paid me the highest compliment. And from that day on, Joe was really our kuya, our manong. Kuminsan may mga away-away din. Alam mo naman magkakapatid, pag nagsama-sama, mag-aaway din sa isang cage. So siya yung taga-awat ng aming mga maliliit na kiskisan because all of us behaved. He was our kuya. Yeah. Pingoy was a father figure. He was the father of Joey Pengson, if you remember.
Yes, Joey Pengson.
Joey was my classmate also and one of our players, Blue Eagles. Unfortunately, Joey passed away also. No? And Pingoy died too young. I think he died just before 1990. So I had very good mentors. I learned a lot from the older guys. And Kinito and later on Andy were very, very gracious and were very, very accommodating. I did not have any problems coming in. Yung style ni Mr. Velez, he would work very hard. In panel meetings namin, were long, kilometric, mula hapon, alas 2 hanggang alas 10 ng gabi. Oh, pinapakain ka and everything. But we would watch the tapes, rewind, forward. Parang kami basketball team. I will forever be grateful to Vintage for those learning opportunities.
Did you ever feel at the time you were defining sportscasting? Because I think prior to that, I'm not sure, I wasn't around at the time, was the Mikaa ever shown on TV? And hence, were you guys defining it as you went at the time?
I think the one that set it apart was the fact that the analyst had a far greater role. And hindi na dati kasi ang late M.A. Arcilla, which he acknowledged also, no? Sabi niya, doon lang daw siya sa free throw, which was his role in the coverage really at that time. Wala namang question, magaling naman si Sir Dick Ildefonso. And in fact, the record shows that he was one of the first that was invited by Mr. Velez to join Vintage, but hindi siguro nagkasundo. Was it defining? I thought it was just it was more redefining how the coverage should be. The analyst became the star. To this day, ang aming guiding principle is the analyst is the one that people wait to hear. The analyst is the star of the presentation, which has carried over to the different production groups that I have worked with through the years long after Vintage.
You said that you had mentors like the late Pingoy Pengson, even Kuya Joe, Sir Joe Cantada. But aside from them, were you watching any broadcasts, whether foreign, NBA, or whatever that? And who did you like, and what did you pick up from that one, sir?
Very good question. When hindi pa ubiquitous ang NBA noon, and you must have been so young, Rick, when the NBA was on the Armed Forces.
FEM.
Diba? Yung sa Clark ba yun?
Yeah.
People would, FEN pa yata nun, people would watch it. But my brother-in-law, si Sonny David, when he was living in the States, sent me over VHS tapes of the NBA. And Dick Stockton was my first model. Dick Stockton to this day, he's 71, 72 years old, still doing games. I thought he had one of the best styles. Nowadays, see, Mike Breen, of course, is among the best that I follow. I watch the guys that I like also and try to learn from them as well. But Stockton was probably the definite outside of Pingoy and Joe. When I would go into the finals dati ng PBA, I would review how Stockton would open the games just to prepare myself, not to steal any lines, but the mindset more than anything else.
On a side note, Job Nikemakolam is watching. Good evening daw, Sir Sev, sabi ni Job.
Maganda, malinis ang pagkakasabi ni Job. Walang Job is such a delightful, funny guy also, diba?
And that's true, that's true. Sir, okay. So from during your time, you've obviously been covering the PBA for decades now. What, in your opinion, has changed about calling a game? Obviously, before, parang growing up, the PBA was the only game in town, and now you have a more diverse audience, no? But and now, given the technology, the reach of all, the internet, and all that, you're speaking to a well-informed audience. So the question is, how has it changed for you personally, calling a game?
When on TV nowadays, I see some of my very old games from the 80s, and I say, wow, was I ever that bad? Was I ever that slow? I wasn't as confident as I probably am today. What's the difference between that time? Uh, I think at that time we were developing the conversation that eventually Andy, Howe, and I and Kinito have developed through the years. Sometimes there were years in the PBA I wasn't around, but we pick up right after we start again with Andy Howe. We know exactly what to do. The difference nowadays is two points. Siguro. The amount of graphics, amount of technology that's weaving in and out of the screen, and the second is the streaming phenomenon. You'll find this so amusing. Kuminsan ano, because sa UAAP, ang saya-saya pag when Ateneo is cheering and USD is cheering, LaSalle is cheering, and you try to shout. Sa ABS, we were asked to keep our voices higher than the audience. Then suddenly, nung PBA na, hindi naman ganun kaingay, except if it's Ginebra and San Miguel that's playing, and we all know that. Those who were listening on stream pala did not like us to shout too much. Sabi ko, bakit? Because they were listening through their earphones. Nagugulat sila. Diba? Listen to this crowd roar. Nagugulat sila. So, ang fear ko is I think they should just listen. If they're on the road, sa radyo, it's not really advisable to be wearing earplugs while you're driving because you have to listen to your environment as well. But that's one of the lessons that I'm still trying to learn. But may mga nagsasabi sa Twitter, I don't mind them. I just keep the energy. I'm trying to find that middle ground between those who are on TV and the stream, of course.
Right. I remember years ago, I was doing the UAAP football finals telecast with Kale Alvarez. And the way me and Kale were calling it was very cool, like your traditional European football. And si Direk, I'm not going to say who it is, si Direk went to us at halftime and said, guys, punch it up. Mala yung masaya, yung ganyan. And then we looked at him, hey, this is football. No, that's not what Filipinos want. They want something more sensational. So the question there is there, how do you approach calling a game? Some people say minsan yung broadcaster, yung commentator, ganyan. Meron naman nagsasabi na, uy, dapat simple ka lang, hindi ka dapat OA. Diba? So what's your take on that, sir?
First, you have to be yourself. If you're the type that really likes to be on from the first opening tip hanggang dulo, well, then be yourself. We can't please everybody. Yung football kasi, you know that sport better than I do, Rick. Alam mo kasi yung Pilipino has to stop watching football like a basketball game. Akala nila football, pero iba yung dynamics ng game. Sa akin, meron akong guiding principle and it's called the rhythm of the game. Ang rhythm of the game ko, it starts from the opening, establishing, not just welcoming the audience and saying good evening, everybody can do that. What's the story? And that I learned from Vintage. What's the drama? What's the conflict between these two teams? I always love to do it in Ateneo LaSalle games, excuse me, because it's so easy to say, welcome to another exciting chapter in the battle between the two schools. And one of the directors sa ABS, I told, Direct, unahin mo yung LaSalle, Ateneo, excuse me, cheerleaders, players, ako nang bahala. And then I say, this game is about two schools who do not like anything about each other. Name it, academic, business, courting the ladies. Back then in the 50s and 60s, nothing is common between these two. The only thing common is the passion for each other's schools. Welcome to the UAAP. Good evening, good afternoon at that time. Same thing when you do Ateneo against UST. You just don't say welcome to the finals. Yun, one of the hardest calls. We all come from Ateneo. Of course, you want Ateneo to win, but in that game in 2006, when Ateneo lost in overtime, my first thought was I have an audience made up of both Ateneo and UST, and I said Ateneo will be fine. It'll be okay. Then I simply said at the end, and UST is the 2006 champion of the UAAP. Wala lang, and Ateneo will be fine. And Ateneo went on to win 5 championships after that defeat in 2006. Just be yourself. Ako, who are you? Are you the barker type? Are you the conversationalist? I think a little of everything. Yung sinabi mo yung premise mo kanina about being a cheerleader. It can't always be get that ball all the time, di ba? It can't always be one big fight, Blue Eagle spelling and halik. Halikino is a hard cheer. Halikino is a very hard cheer, and it dies kuminsan eh.
Haba.
Ateneo. Ang tagal eh, no? Biglang, shoot Ateneo, magwawala na naman yung audience ng Ateneo, and you know what's going to happen? Magsasaya sila doon. So, blessing, being a cheerleader has helped also sportscasting.
Mm-hmm. Sir, okay, having watched you a lot, I noticed that you don't like using cliches. Hence, preparation. How do you roll when the event unfolds? Do you think about it already, or is it just spontaneous the way you call a game?
I try to scribble down a few notes at the start. Especially the opening to me is very critical. It sets the mood, and then I try not to use too much of the cliches. For instance, a couple of my pet peeves is he fires at 3 in a crucial part of the game. It could have been big had it gone in. And yan eh. Tapos, and I tell my fellow announcers, let's stop saying, iba talaga ang laro dito sa PBA, iba ang laro there, and stranger things have happened. We're just doing basketball, and stranger things can happen, you know. And I talk to our friends, UAAP, and even sa MPBL, and all the other leagues. Sabi ko, guys, let's just call it as it is. It's not. Nothing makes it more unusual. The PBA or whatever league, it's still basketball. Pinoy basketball is different because it's so unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you've, in your opinion, and I hindi naman bulaga question to, no? Before we show the pictures that you're sharing, that you want to share with the audience that's watching, Coach Mike Buendia is watching also.
Brother ko yan.
Oh, tsaka si Patrick Mayo, one of my colleagues sa media, nanonood siya, taga-US dito. Magandang gabi sa inyo lahat. So Sir Sev, in your opinion, what are the top 5 games or sporting events that you have called, and why? Okay. I know I should have given you time for that one.
No, it's okay. It's okay. 1991, Ginebra against Shell, because Ginebra fought back being down 3-1 in that series with a classic Rudy Distrito shot from the corner that shook up the whole Coliseum. That will be. But you know what? In this time of the pandemic, everybody's asking me about the nostalgia of that game. I could not remember. Hindi ako makakita sa YouTube ng buong game. I only remember that end portion. The second game I remember, of course, you and I have talked about this. You wrote this so poignantly in the book that we did. Philippines losing to Korea in Busan. You know, Noel Zarate put it so succinctly. That happened in a time of social media. I would have been bludgeoned there because supposedly a lot of people didn't like my call of the game because I simply said at the end, I forget, you know this better than I do. So-and-so from Korea fires at 3. It's good, and Korea is in the finals. So, sabi ko, what else can I say? So I should feel bad that the Philippines, that Rosella missed 2 free throws. I'm not going to fry also Rosella for missing those 2 free throws. Diba? Not because he's an Atenean, but he's a Filipino, and the pressure of the game. Diba? Why will I haunt Olsen for all time? Third game that I would love to, and it's also interesting, the 2006 UAAP finals, Ateneo and UST. Another one that I remember, 1 or 2 NBA games that I did in the provinces where supposedly I had made that call for the first time and listened to this crowd roar. And probably the last thing that I would do is, if it's not basketball, it would have been a Pacquiao fight. It would be Pacquiao Morales 3, which was in Thomas and Mack in Las Vegas. That would be probably my top 5.
What's it like calling a Pacquiao match, Sir Sev?
Wait, it's andun na yung thrill eh. It's you should feel so proud that your little Filipino countryman is the center of attention of the entire media world. He just enters the weigh-in, the press conference. Manny is especially in those early years, may isa kaming may briefing lagi with the announcers, with the fighters, and Manny goes into the room with all the American announcers and us. Hi, good afternoon to all of you. It's good to see you all. Di ba? Yung kanyang Visayan Mindanaoan accent, which yes, medyo na wala na yun through the years. And Manny whispers to me, okay ba English ko? Lusot ba? Oo naman. Oo naman, lusot yan. Sige, practice lang ng practice. Kasi he was beginning to learn how. The only way you can learn language is to speak it. You are in awe of what is being accorded our Filipino champion. Last story, last footnote there. Manny wins against Margarito in Dallas. And I have this tall Texan cameraman, and they're waiting for this little Filipino. And they're waiting along with me, and they keep whispering, is your champion coming out? I think so. I guess we just have to wait. And they waited until Pacquiao stepped out, and he shouted out at me, said niya, "Kajot lang, pre, ha?" And he said, "Kajot lang," because tinatahi siya rito. That was a difficult fight that he won against Margarito. That's right. It's real. It's scary. It's the the third Eric Morales and Pacquiao fight was larger and louder probably than an Ateneo Lasal game because it was a larger venue.
There's a question here. Sabi, ang tinatanong Sir Sev, how do you maintain your objectivity, which is probably very hard, especially when a Filipino is fighting against a foreign fighter or a foreign team? Magandang tanong yan, sir.
Very good question. I've always believed, kahit sa classes natin sa Department of Communication, mahirap alisin ang bias ng media. But sa akin, once you cover a Filipino for that matter, you're biased already. What you want to be is fair. I think nung Busan game, nung natalo ang Philippines, I was as fair as I could possibly be. Probably if there was social media back then, baka naprito tayo ng konti, but that's part of the game. When you go into the game, pag Philippines ang may kalaban, wala na, bias ka na agad. Pag Ateneo, ito magandang footnote to. I met a young lady from one of the corporations, and she said, "I hated you, sir, when you would ever do the Ateneo Lasal games." And I said, "Why?" Because I know you come from Ateneo. How can you tell? There's a way of speaking. There's a way, and I told Miko Halili about this. Alam mo, Mix, the more we try to be as unbiased as we are, the more biased we become. So let's just let it all out. And it's never easy. An Ateneo Lasal game is one of the hardest to cover, regardless of the outcome, because so many things are happening at the same time. Another story. During the game, an old woman approaches me, and I'm about to say, "And we are now going to send you back to ABS-CBN. It's halftime. LaSalle leads 35-30, for instance." She comes close to me and yells at me, Iho, do something about the referee, Iho. He is so biased for LaSalle." And I'm wearing my headset and saying, hang on, ma'am, hang on. And I talked to her, and I said, what can I do about it? It's the referee, no, hindi ko territory. But it's hard. I wish it were easier, but it's definitely hard.
The hazards of the occupation. You're at Usapang Broadcaster with Sev Sarmenta. Ako po si Rick Olivares. We're talking to one of the best TV commentators, analysts, commentators, and hosts. Sir, as I understand, you also teach. And how long have you been teaching? Is it only in Ateneo? Do you also teach elsewhere, sir?
No, I started teaching in 1982 in a place, St. Joseph's College. And then taught UP College of Mass Communication for a while finishing my MA. And then got into Ateneo starting in 85. My first batch was Bill Velasco. He was my first batch, and Miko Halili came around 93, Vicky Morales, 1990. It just shows you how much time I spent in Ateneo. Actually, kung may classes sana ng mga normal face-to-face, would have been my 35th year, but I guess we're going online, so let's see how that turns out. It's 35 years, 16 years full-time sa Ateneo. I've retired already, but I'm going to retain myself as a lecturer.
That's already a pretty distinguished list. Nico, Bill, and then Vicky. Sino pa yung dumaan sa mga klase niyo, Sir Sev?
Among those who are working nowadays, most of the reporters, si Mabiel Gonzalez, si GMA, sa ABS, si Shara Zambrano was there also. Jeff Conoy was in school, but he was not one of my students. It's interesting. Gretchen Ho, for instance, was one of my students also, because after her taking her ME, she decided she wanted to play one more year ng volleyball. Sabi niya, mag-MA sana siya sa akin. Then mag 2 degrees ka na lang. So she ended up with finishing 2 degrees, and she has COM and ME as her degrees mula sa Ateneo.
Mm-hmm. What is the satisfaction of teaching kids?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I think the satisfaction is learning together. It's especially in this time when they seem to know more about how social media works. When you say influencer, they understand that right away. But you have to, as your role as a teacher, explain what is a good influencer. Kasi may mga influencer na hindi magandang agenda. What are the dangers of social media? What does it mean to be relevant as a content provider? Hindi naman pwede rant ka ng rant, diba? So it's an interesting and intriguing time to be in. And I find it fascinating that I'm ending up learning a lot more from my students sometimes than me teaching them. But like when you do the thesis with them, last 2 semesters ago, I became a thesis advisor again. It's not the easiest course to teach. It's a lot of hand-holding, guidance, consumes so much time. But the satisfaction is that you've learned something new together.
Mm-hmm. The time that you came up and at the time that you were starting to teach, it was vastly different. And now because of social media, people are saying that the attention spans are a lot shorter by today's generation. So in terms of teaching, how do you communicate trying to keep the attention of the audience? What do you tell your students, sir?
It looks like what the challenge now is, as what Anthony Fauci said, precision of thought, economy of expression. Like that's why I always try to match let's say from sportscasting first, I match the visuals that are produced by our team with enough lines so that I don't say too much, so that the pictures say more of a story. For instance, as the teams go into their locker rooms at the end of the first half, 24 minutes have been played out of this drama with still more acts to follow. Who will be the lead stars? Who will be smiling at the end of this game? I just don't say it's exciting, wait for that, we'll stand by for. I have to put an ounce, a dash of drama. By the same token, and I'm telling my students, when you write, for instance, you write a lot of columns and news stories. You and I know that the hardest thing to write is the lead. The lead is the struggle, no matter how many years you are in journalism, and whether it's agriculture, crime, medicine, whatever. I have yet to meet somebody who just masterfully does the lead. There are, of course, guys who do it, but that is a struggle. And now if you can nail that lead, the who, what, where, why, how, when, and in very precise terms, then you're probably doing a good job. The trick now is in a tweet, for instance, 140 or so characters. What are you saying in 140? Ilan na ba, Rick? 160? 150?
I'm not sure. As far as I know, it's still 140.
Ikaw, may iksi lang din ang tweets mo eh. So, which is good. You don't have to, wow, hindi ka naman si Donald Trump na ang haba-haba ng tweet. The tweet, make it as meaningful as possible. In a way, parang poetry ang tweeting eh. No? Kailangan eksakto ang delivery mo. Kahit sa Facebook, hindi ka lang, ako ang max ko sa Facebook, three paragraphs, tapos tama na. Attention spans, yes, hindi lang ng bata, ha? Hindi lang ng millennials, hindi lang ng X, Y. Lahat tayo may ng attention span. Tapos may, itong Zoom, for instance, may fatigue ito, di ba? Try sitting through a meeting for about an hour and a half, and before you know it, you're closing the screen. Even if your boss tells you, walang mag-shut ng screen, ha? And you're all dozing off. And because you're tired from the whole experience. And even with this pandemic, with all the time that we have, actually, yung fatigue natin has been added on exponentially.
Mm-hmm. Sir Sev, Ricky Dandan says, Senyor Sev.
Yan. Ano yan? Kasama natin na mahilig sa vinyl din yan.
Si June Balmaceda, nanonood, sir.
Magaling din mag-basketball yan.
Sir, what does it say that, we're not being prejudiced towards anyone with this question, but what does it say that you and Andy Howe and Kinito Henson are still doing broadcasts to this day?
Mm-hmm.
Kasi watching Dr. J, man, the guy can still break down a game like nobody's business.
It's very simple. I love, di ba, both are, you prepare differently for both guys. Kay Kinito, I know he's always over-prepared. And the trick there is to draw out what he has. Sabi ko, kung minsan pagka yung game, hindi mo siya maganda sa lahat ng baon mo, timeout, lahat ng baon mo, labas mo na rito. Kung ano meron ko, labas mo na lahat. Si Andy naman, I have learned through the years timing, which I learned from listening to him and Joe. Ang kay Andy, yung reaction niya, yung sa game is still second to none. Eh. Halimbawa, sasabihin niya, every big man must have that shot. Can't miss that. Can't keep on missing that shot. That call is not. He was not in the right position. Yung experience ni Andy from being on the bench of different teams sa PBA, at saka si Andy, pag nagpaliwanag ng team standings, lalo na pag komplikado na yung number 1 must beat number 4 and that. Si Andy, I learned very quickly, said, it's very simple. You must not lose. Di ba? Pag sinabi niya, you must not lose, edi tapos. Nobody, magpapatayan na yung mga team na yan. And then, the simplicity of the game, si Andy is I know exactly when to bring out his strengths, and when I know when he's disappointed with something in the game. Ganon din si Kinito, and then I just let them shine. Even sa akin, whether you're young, you're new, basta bubuksan ko, for the analyst, bubuksan ko lahat ng pinto. There's another joy that people have listened to us through the years is my partnership with Mosi Ravena. Why? Because we're practically from the same volleyball era. Nila Coach Louis Hipuela. We came from the time when volleyball was really nothing. It was all played in that small Coliseum sa Rizal Memorial when only family and friends would watch, and now it's such a big thing. So ang kwento namin ni Mosi, and I've been listening to a couple of our old games sa Shakey's Bilig, para kaming mga kuya at ating nanonood ng mga bata when Rachel Andakis and Eliza were still so young at that time. You develop partnership by appearing as often as possible with the person. There were opportunities to develop partnerships. Ngayon, it is more of availability. For instance, I've always liked the Miko Halili, Jason Webb combination. Without having to talk at Ateneo Lasal, it comes out the culture of the two schools. And that's why Jason is such a good coach, assistant coach as well. Yun ang masarap to sa trabaho na yun, is you prepare differently for each analyst that you're assigned with.
That's right. Sir Sev, si Bradwin Ginto, nanunood. Magandang gabi daw, sabi ni Bradwin. All right. Now, to all those watching on Facebook, and you'll see it on YouTube later on sa Hoops Coaches International page ni Coach Ariel Vanguardia, we're now going to be sharing some of the pictures that Sir Sev gave to us, and he will take us through these particular pictures. Ayan po. Sir, nakikita po nila?
Yung picture na yan, yung may headset, si Mike San Juan yan, yung aming floor director. And we're in Bacolod. This is for the Philippine Superliga with Miss Chiki Pablo. We did 3 games. In volleyball, punong-puno ang volleyball venue. This is at University of St. Lasal, which used to be the MBA venue. Parang frozen in time siya, nakakatawa. It still looks the same. Wala pa ring aircon, but it's still one of the warmest in terms of audience reception. It's always a pleasure to magkanto sa Bacolod, mahampang da. I enjoy it yan. Okay.
Sir Sev, nung nasa college po sila, hindi lang basketball yung power sa Ateneo, pati volleyball. We were good in volleyball. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Yung team nila Jimmy Javier actually was a champion team as well. They won makuha at nilaro yung game na yun sa Lasal Green Hills. There was one man who was the architect of the juniors, women's. That was the year juniors, women's, at seniors na lalaki champion. That was Pitong Custodio, who was the coach at that time.
That's right. That's right. Okay, here's another picture that we're going to be sharing for our audience out there.
And of course, these are your 2 seniors. Yours truly with Dr. J. Andiao at one of those games at the Mall of Asia Arena. I think this could be one of those international. Yeah, this might have been a FIBA game because I'm wearing an ID. So this must be one of those. This might have been the Gilas against Japan. Yep, ayun, may mga Gilas logos sa likod. So this might have been that. Remember that controversial game where eventually si Kiefer was tested and thereafter. Yun.
That's right. Sir, there's a question here. What is your preparation for international games? Anong difference, sir, siguro expounding it, or hihimay natin na konti, anong diferensya sa pagtawag sa UAAP, PBA, kesyo sa international match?
Ang UAAP, may early moments yan, kikilalanin mo yung teams eh. Ako may lagi yan, may first 3 minutes, and kung hindi PBA, kakapain ko yan, lalo na may mga bagong members of the team. I am in NBN, in awe of my colleagues and the passion they have because their love for the game, because they're always on the internet, they're always following, they know so much, and I can't compete with them, and I don't intend to compete with them. I listen to their stories, I read up on my own. But like for instance, pagka yung international coverage, pag doubtful ako sa pronunciation, si Noel Zarating, expert na. Kasi Barker natin si Noel, there are nuances in siyempre pagka yung mga East European names, ito na yung mga Belipagic, minsan, ang pinakamahirap na game talaga yung Thailand, this is the name of a runner, si Anat Ratanapol. Pagka akala mo, pag hinahanda mo, pero pag bumilis yung laro, patay ka na. Ito, Ratanapol, looking for the game, di ba? Kuminsan, natutunan ko rin kay Bill Velasco, shortcutin mo ng konti, yung first name lang ang gagamitin mo. Ang maganda sa volleyball, takes a while. And I'm sure sa football, may gap konti, may konting allowance. Ang basketball, hindi. Ang bilis. Sobra.
That's true. Okay, we're going to be taking a look at a few more pictures here that Sir Sev has shared with us for the benefit of our attendees. Ayan.
Ako? Ito.
Asian Games.
This one was in the Asian Games in 2018. After a very long time, the last Asian Games I did was the 2002 Busan, and then this was a late call. They invited me to do the Asian Games, but this was not for TV5. I was actually the only Filipino in a group of international broadcasters that did this for Dentsu Broadcasting. Dentsu is the big communications company of Japan, and they are the ones that distribute the material to the different countries. Now, the challenge of this coverage, I did only one basketball game. Um, I did not do, hardly did any Filipino games. And I did sports here that I had normally did not cover. Equestrian, handball, diving, water polo, shooting. And I had, ito pagod itong coverage ito, but I had to, buti na lang sa panahon ngayon, may YouTube, may sangkaterbang video. Nung araw, wala nung ganyan. You had to really learn the sport, go to the library and look at an encyclopedia. But nowadays, there's the advantage of the internet, and I studied every night. Thankful for this coverage because now I have confidence. I can do handball, water polo, and equestrian. I didn't know about the trotting and the all those French names until that coverage. Kapag itong coverage ito, sometimes you would do afternoon hanggang gabi, kuminsan buong umaga hanggang hapon, and bihirang-bihira ang day off. This was in Indonesia, no? In Jakarta 2 years ago.
Sir, being a part of the international media, what have you discovered about yourself being amongst the international media and covering non-traditional events, sporting events that you're associated with?
Sakit sa ulo pala umingles, dire-diretso. No? Hindi, at saka yung when you do the Pacquiao fight, no, there's always that part wherein you have to do a stand-upper, wherein you have to do a 3 to 5 minute opening. And I try to nail that without any take-two. Kasi puro Americans yung aking crew. I want to make them know that the Filipino can do this, that we will not do take 2, take 3, take 4. And in this group, in Indonesia, I tried my best to do the utmost, best possible job so that dala ko bandera na natin eh. I was recommended by Miss Patricia Bermuda Season, and she said, this guy is a veteran, and I had to live up to the expectations of Patricia as well as of our network, and being a Filipino as well. So there's a group of, actually this is a day off namin. We called ourselves the Crazy Poor Asians. We actually went around the venue, 3 from Singapore, 2 from Japan, 2 from other countries. It was a delightful experience doing this in Jakarta.
We're down to our last 15 minutes with this Usapang broadcaster with Sev Sarmenta, Rick Olivares po ang inyong host for tonight. We have one more picture and a couple of more questions to field for Sir Sev to field. This is the last picture that we'll share. Ayan. Kaibigan natin si Dominic Uy.
Yeah. Always a pleasure to, this is I think at Inares in Antipolo. It's always a pleasure to work with the youthful exuberance of Dominic Uy. He didn't make it to the PBA, but his understanding of the game from the perspective of the player, kasi naglaro naman siya sa Iloilo Volts no, sa PBA. So that came as close as he can. He was drafted by the PBA, but did not get to sign a contract. But he is a dedicated family man and loves the game passionately. Sarap din ka-golf ito si Dominic. Tawa lang kami ng tawa nito. Di hamak na mas magaling siya. Si Anthony Suntay, hindi namin kinakalaro yun ng masyado kasi magaling si Anthony maglaro eh.
All right. Okay, sir, given the state of sports today, with this pandemic still raging and you've not beaten it, I'm sure that you've had time during this lockout to think about what's next and maraming uncertainties, especially for live matches. In your opinion, how do you see sports at least in the near future without a vaccine for now?
I have 2 views. No, one is the pessimistic view. I'm ready for the remainder of the year without sports. It's bad for my pocket, bad for my finances. But unless there's a guarantee, some semblance of guarantee that we will be safe in the venue, I'm doubtful about that because we're still moving slowly in that regard. The second one is hopefully, because the NBA seems to be moving in the right direction, is that possibly we maybe, excuse me, create our own bubble to be able to have sports. I find it difficult for the UAAP and the NCAA to return. Why? Because ang guiding principle sa UA is that if classes are not face-to-face, how can you have college sports? So medyo mahirap. Tapos, ang sayang naman ng college sports kung walang cheerleaders, walang crowd, walang everything. We tried it in the PSL, yung one game day na walang crowd. It's not so odd and it's so different. I'm sure you've seen the Bundesliga on TV, ano?
Masaya.
Weird, no? Biglang, wala naman tao, biglang pag na-miss yung goal, akala mo, dami-daming tao. But if the NBA is able to do it, let's see if we can do it as well. Ito ang big difference. NBA is willing to spend. Boy, they're going to test every day and that's not going to be cheap.
Yep.
Masyadong malaki ang losses kasi for them, I think they're after the TV income more than anything else as well. They're trying to save that because they're not going to make money anymore from the crowd and from the food inside the venue. They have to find some way to be able to continue to pay the salaries of the players. And I'm sure yung TV income is something they are going to look forward to. I think we must be safe. We should tread slowly. Huwag natin madaliin, bumalik ang mga liga. Ikaw, do you think football, okay ba yung Bundesliga? Kung minsan they tend to forget that, pag nai-score ang goal, nag-aakapan sila eh.
But from what I understand, they frown upon it, but the league is not against it, so they allow it. So there are no penalties.
Okay.
But I'm sure that might change if something happens, no? Pero,
yeah, the other day I was in a casual chat with L.A. Tenorio and Francis Ochoa, the choir, and we said, paano ba to? Pagka nakashoot ng winning basket, na-shoot yung win, you're just going to celebrate by yourself. Walang aakap sa'yo, walang magwawala sa tabi mo. You're just going to be sorry. That's such a new normal for us. The question we teased LA is, how is Ginebra going to win without the Ginebra fans in the audience? Diba? They'll all be on television or on streaming. Alam mo naman, napaka-sixth man ng NSD crowd. So we're faced with a lot of challenges down the road. So many things happening. And isa pa, let's face it, sports is not one of the top priorities nowadays.
Of course, yeah.
So many issues happening all at the same time. The pandemic, legislation, the ABS-CBN thing. So many things happening at the same time.
Sir Sev, we're down to our last 5 minutes. Sir Sev, did you cover the closed-door matches of Gilas? Were you the one covering it?
I did not. I saw it, but I did not. I was not assigned to do that game. Why do you ask?
Okay.
Weren't you there?
Assuming that matuloy itong PBA, no? Kasi like may nakita ko naglabas ng San Miguel na negative, nag-test ng negative yung players sila. And assuming na magpatuloy, much like the NBA, to empty stadia, how much pressure is there now on the television crew, the color commentator, and the anchor to deliver the goods?
The model that they're looking at is that possibly we might do off-tune. Meaning to say, like what we did in the Southeast Asian Games, the feed just goes into the studio and we do it off-tune. You try as best as you can to approximate the feeling like if you're inside the venue. There's nothing like doing it inside the venue. But if those are the circumstances, then we'll have to do it that way. It's going to be challenging, but at the same time, there's a way of doing it that makes people feel that you're still inside the venue. Just don't fake it. Just don't say you're inside the venue when you're actually not inside it. We hope that before 2020, kailan ba tayo mag-host ng World? 2023, ano?
Yes, 2023.
I hope by that time, it's hard naman na walang audience. So much has been invested in it and we look forward to really hosting that.
Okay. Sir, we have a question. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
We have a question here from an Ateneo student pero ayaw niyang bigay ang pangalan niya. I want to take up com and go into sportscasting, but given this pandemic, my parents are asking me to shift courses to something more practical. What should I do, Sir Sam?
I would keep the sportscasting thing on hold, but to learn communications in general, so that you don't learn just sports. This guy beside me is very good as far as music is concerned. So pati si Coach Ricky Dandan, ang to, yung mga kolektor ng mga lumang plaka, itong mga ito, nagkukumparahan kami ng plaka. Joey Guanyo, by the way, is also a vinyl follower. No? There was one day I posted an old Gary V album sa kanya. Naku, ang mahal niyan! Sabi, benta yan! Sabi ko, no. I think communication will continue to be valuable. It's in a state of flux right now. But if not for the phenomenon of technology, we would not have been able to work at home. Then I would say don't take communication. But now, this thing is happening while Rick is at home, I'm at home. We are still able to reach out to you. There are some things we cannot do now. Like my cabin fever is at an all-time high. For somebody who is always out 81 days and counting, the most useless investment I had this year was a planner. It has nothing.
Exactly.
Voila. So I think I would still recommend. I'm biased, but talk to your parents about it. I think advertising will still be around. Filmmaking, television might take a while before it comes back. Broadcasting as well, but writing will always be there. I think I've always told students through the years, if you want to be in communications, you have to learn how to write. You have to know how to write, and not even basta matinong paragraph, matinong sentence, hindi laging pagandahan. Basta isang clear piece of writing, you're in business.
Mm-hmm. The last question is from another student. This one from UST. Pangalan niya ay Dina. Tinatanong ni Dina, Sir Sev, kung walang mga pasok ngayon, Sir Sev, bakit hindi ka gumawa ng online courses na pwede kayo maningil? Yan.
Online course ba on what subject? For my...
I would presume it's sportscasting or even communications.
That's something we can definitely think of, and we might be able to do. Let's see. But it's hard to teach sportscasting pag wala yung complete video. We have to do play-by-play and everything. Let's see. I might be able to do something very soon. Let's see. But most of my courses, my public relations and public relations tools, I'm still formulating the syllabi. It's going to be challenging because I think, unofficially yet, but I think Ateneo is moving in the direction of half a semester each for the cognates, half a semester for the core curricula. We're looking at that. And so it's going to be a shorter semester. So that's going to be challenging. There's a Chinese proverb supposed to be that says, we hope you live in interesting times. This is getting too interesting.
Definitely.
We ache for the days when we can go back out, watch our games. I love watching. I don't think I can call a football game. I love playing it before, but I don't think I can do the play. I love watching it. I love seeing the highlights of it. But I do games that I think I can do, that I'm comfortable with, and I have a little experience with it. It's been quite an hour. Bilis na isang oras, Rick.
I have one last question, but this is more of a personal one. How do you feel about your son also getting into sports?
A lot of people are talking to me about it. I'm not surprised that CEO moved to sports writing because he was very active with Timex, running those triathlons and marathons and those fun runs. Eventually got to know the sports side of it and eventually gravitated towards that. We was hesitant at first to be a play-by-play. I've listened to him once or twice, but I don't coach him because I want him to develop his own style as well. I never listen for an hour or a full game to another person, and then I tell and I nitpick on what he or she did not do well, and I won't do it for my own son as well. I look forward to him doing well. I think wala rin silang trabaho ngayon after traveling around Asia because of the ASEAN Basketball League. We hope that can come back kasi that's also a good league because brings us closer to Asia. Nakakainis no, nawala yung traveling natin.
Talaga. I've had the pleasure of working with your son, doing broadcasts for the NBTC, and I've always enjoyed it. It's the closest thing to working with you. Having said that, Sir Sev, any parting words, whether to our frontliners? Meron tayong dedicated viewers from Medical City. Ha? Meron, sir. Dedicated. Okay. Nanonood sila, mga estudyante.
Salamat. Iba yung ball game, iba yung sporting event na ito. Yung kalaban, hindi natin nakikita. Ang tanging pangharang natin is una kayo. Kaya nga frontliner na tawag sa inyo. Yung sakripisyo nyo para sa aming lahat. Sana masuklian namin by being behaved, staying at home, washing our hands, doing the hygiene and health protocols. Ang inyong mga paboritong sports are moving slowly trying to get back, but we will not be reckless and careless about it because lives are at stake. Sayang naman yung investment ng inyong sacrifice, ng inyong time. We salute what you have done and we will continue to pray for you. And let's hope and pray also. I think what we need now is God's blessing and a miracle so that we can all go back to some kind of normal.
A lot of words of wisdom and experiences shared by one of our very best, Mr. Sev Sarmenta. For Phil Oil Flying Esports, Joey Guillermo, and Coach Ariel Vanguardia, ito po si Rick Olivares. Maraming salamat sa mga nanonood, Sir Sev. Always a pleasure, my dean. And sa lahat na nanonood, we thank you for watching, especially those who watch on YouTube later. This coming Tuesday, sa Usapang Basketball, we will have the coaching staff of the NU Bulldogs when they won their UAP championship in season 77. They will be dissecting all the games from the UE match all the way to the final. So that would be something interesting on how they prepared for Kiefer Avena, Charles Mami. That would be something. So manood kayo, we will share the poster and the join link. Sir Sev, maraming salamat po. Good night and stay safe. Good night, Pilipinas. Bye-bye.